welcome back to my author commentary for A Prince of Song and Shade. Today we are up to chapter 5. Let's jump right in. Right, so this chapter is a relatively small one, but there's lots of little undercurrents happening behind the scenes, which I'm keen to dig into a little bit. So we're back with Cuinn's point of view. We start with him attending a party, one of the regular ones that he attends as the Prince of Song, as part of his role, the facade that he puts forward as the indolent prince amongst the high society of Mithanis. He has a conversation with his brother, which is quite interesting. He sings for the party, which seems like a relatively normal ask. Him being the Prince of Song, the best song mage amongst the winged folk, he often gets called upon to sing at parties like this, and that's nothing out of the ordinary there. But as he's leaving with Nia, who's his lover at the moment, he notices a conversation between Ursel Goldfeather and Azrilan, which, again, on the surface doesn't necessarily appear to be much, but there's quite a lot going on there. And then Cuinn heads back to his quarters with Nia. His head's full of plans for heading back down to Dock City later in the evening if he can manage to escape his wolf guard detail. So, digging into this chapter a little bit, starting off, this is the first conversation with Azrilan we get from Cuinn's point of view. So we've obviously had Talon's perspective on both Azrilan and Mithanis, the elder princes. That's been quite an unlikable perspective, particularly in Mithanis' case, that we haven't really seen too much of Azrilan in the first book, apart from the fact he seems to be essentially his brother's lackey and just as nasty and full of himself as Mithanis. But here we see Cuinn's perspective on his brother, and as we see kind of unfold a little bit throughout this book, Azrilan is the nicer brother to Cuinn. If Cuinn wants to have a genuine family member, he feels it would probably be Azrilan, and that Azrilan might even be a better brother or a better family member. Was Mithanis not in the picture at all? Based on Cuinn's assumption, an erroneous one, it turns out that Azrilan is terrified of Mithanis and is his lackey. But yeah, Azrilan is nicer to Cuinn. Cuinn likes him more for that. But we do get a few little quiet references here, the foreshadowing to what Azrilan's really up to. One, the reference to his love of gambling and his love of games. And also the quiet reference to his skill at song magic and the fact that he is so much more skilled at using it than Mithanis is. And that's a really, really subtle but interesting clue I wanted to land in there, because as I said in the previous chapter's author commentary, Mithanis is the red herring adversary for this series. He's horrible, he's monstrous, his behavior is monstrous. He's also incredibly powerful. But that power doesn't necessarily come with a lot of skill. And when you think about the level of manipulation which Azrilan has gone to over the years to hide what he's plotting and planning, that requires not just power, but also skill, the same level of skill that Cuinn has employed as the Shadowhawk to hide who he is and what his true identity is. So just a couple of little foreshadowing references in that conversation with Azrilan, which otherwise makes you kind of get a more sympathetic view of the younger Condor Prince. We also get a fairly interesting view, and like I said in earlier author commentaries, this book allows us to dig deeper into Cuinn's psyche, what he's thinking, what he's feeling, what drives him. And we get a very strong sense of the dichotomy that is Cuinn. One is the vigilante that haunts the Dock City streets, undertaking crime to try and help his people. The other is the party boy that lives up at the Citadel in Mithanis, who has regular lovers, who drinks, who parties, who, for all intents and purposes, is incredibly superficial. And then we have the underlying layer of that, which is the shame that he feels about that. He doesn't feel like he's being successful enough as the Shadowhawk. He doesn't feel like he's engendering enough change for what he owes his people. And the fact that he has to behave like this party boy makes him feel even worse, because he just feels so ashamed of what he's doing. And yet at the same time, that those parties, those dinners, the drinking, the lovers, that also is a crutch. It helps him escape from that shame and from the burden of being that Dumnorix, of having that drive, that unrelenting drive to fix things, to do better. So he's a very complex person, is Cuinn, and we start getting a lot more insight into that and all the kind of the thoughts revolving around in his head, which was great fun for me as a writer. The wolves, incidentally, have made things incredibly difficult for him, where he used to sneak out of his tower quite easily to do his activities as the Shadowhawk. Talon has trained the wolves to essentially be an incredibly elite guard detail, and therefore slipping by them is far from easy and requires quite a lot of extra additional work that Cuinn now has to do to escape them. We end this scene with Cuinn overhearing or interrupting a conversation between Ursel Goldfeather and Azrilan. As we know, again, spoiler alert for these author commentaries, jump out now if you don't want any spoilers. But Ursel Goldfeather is about to end up murdered quite horribly alongside Idrian Iceflight, the equally horrible Falcon wing leader. And it has everything to do with Azrilan in that conversation. So Azrilan plays it off to Cuinn as simply Ursel coming to him to complain about Mithanis and some decisions that Mithanis is taking. Cuinn believes that without hesitation. Again, his underlying assumptions about Azrilan and about how Azrilan feels towards Mithanis are very in depth, and he doesn't even think to kind of question them. But really, Azrilan's been up to no good. Ursel's picked up on it, and he's about to get himself into a lot of trouble, as we will see as this book continues to unfold. So yeah, a relatively short chapter, but some very interesting undercurrents starting to come to light that will lead into future events in this book. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this chapter in a bit more depth. I certainly had a lot of fun talking to you about it. I look forward to seeing you in chapter 6 soon. I hope you have a great day.